If you want to know the secrets of existence and the true meaning of life, I can't help you. But if you want some book recommendations, why not try reading the ones I wrote? If you're a fan of giant monster mayhem and anime weirdness, why not try Operation Red Dragon: The Kaiju Wars Part 1? If horror is more your style, you can't go wrong with The Occult Mafia. Those who enjoy their fantasy with a dark twist may be interested in Emerald of Maddox City. And if you're interested in shared universes, why not read all three? Hop on down to the description for links to all 3 books on Amazon. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am the Omni viewer, and it's time for another collectible review. As you can see, my Kaiju collection contains a lot of Godzilla, but it is sorely lacking in Gamera. For a long time, the only Gamera figure I had was this Revoltech rendition of the 1996 design. I do like this figure, but since I'm trying to get into photography, I've found that it has its limits. The figure is tiny as Kaiju figures go, so it doesn't really scale well with most other figures in my collection. The only ones it looks good alongside are the NECA figures, and even then, only the legendary designs. Plus, I'll be honest, I just want some more Gamera stuff for my collection. When I first attended G-Fest in 2019, I kept my eyes open while I was in the vendor hall for Gamera figures, and while there were some there, most of them were selling for upwards of $70, which was way out of my then minuscule price range. Not long after that event ended, the announcement came down that Bandai would be reissuing its 1995 Gamera figure, based on the Guardian of the Universe design which debuted that same year, and it would be reasonably priced in the standard $19 to $25 range. Well, it's been a while since then, but I did finally splurge on him, and now that I've got him, I figured I'd give him a proper analysis to let you guys know if he's worth the price. As stated, this figure is modeled after the 1995 design, the first Heisei Gamera who kicked off one of the greatest cinematic trilogies ever made. It's a design that retains the overall friendly appearance of the Showa version, but with a high level of detail that made it feel fresh and organic. Back in the day, Bandai was the final word in high-quality Kaiju figures due to the level of detail put into them, and this guy lives up to that high standard. This Gamera looks great from nearly every angle. The details line up exactly with what we see in the film, from the folds in his skin to the dents in his shell. The only parts that lack detail are the bottoms of his feet, which bear the company stamps. Kind of unfortunate that they didn't even bother, but ultimately it's not that big of a deal to me. I mean, honestly, how often are you gonna see the bottom of his feet anyway? The different pieces all fit together nicely. Indeed, you could argue that Gamera's design translates well into a figure, since his status as a turtle with a shell helps obscure the joints where the limbs attach to his body. There are, however, 2 seams that are clearly visible. There is a clear line where the headpiece connects with the body, and a line separating the jaw from the rest of the noggin. To be fair, the Bandai team made an effort to incorporate the lines into the design organically, and it kind of works, but there are places where the lines are just too straight to look natural. They're minor breaks in the flow, but once you see them, you can't unsee them. It might have worked a little better if the head attached in a similar way to the limbs, which would have also allowed it to rotate. The jaw seam is likely unavoidable, as it probably makes it easier to paint details on the tusks and the inside of the mouth before final assembly. Paint is mostly good, but with a few tiny issues. For the most part, Gamera is solid forest green with no variation. I'm pretty sure that's just the color of the vinyl, so no issue with paint there. His abdomen, aka the bottom of his shell, is painted olive drab with deliberate modeling so some of the green shows through. It makes the shell look a little more organic, even if the color doesn't quite line up with what we see in the movie. Impressively, the eyes are painted evenly, which is a nice change of pace from some of the figures I've recently reviewed. Eyes have been a sticking point with some other Kaiju figures, but Gamera's eyes are just about perfect. There's no noticeable bleed on the tusks, which are painted with built-in shading. The inside of his mouth has a little bleed between the teeth and gums, but you have to get really close to notice it. The claws have a little bit of bleed as well, particularly on the feet. The worst of it is on each of the innermost toes, where the painting looks a little sloppy.
I imagine those ones were probably hard to paint, but a little touch-up would have been nice.
Articulation is pretty standard for this kind of figure.
The arms, legs, and tail all move, and are each capable of rotating a full 360 degrees. As noted, the head can't move, but no sense in making a big deal about that again. The figure also has incredible balance. When standing neutrally, Gamera is able to stand on his own 2 feet without needing extra support from his tail, which hovers a few millimeters off the ground. He may look front-heavy, but his center of gravity is lower than it appears. This might be a minor thing to some, but I always appreciate when these figures can stand on their own.
But what about the scale? That's part of the reason I wanted a Bandai figure after all. Well, against other Bandai figures, scaling is a roll of the dice.
This figure technically wasn't made to stand alongside Kaiju from other studios after all, and the size of other figures can be all over the map anyway. I ordered a Biollante figure alongside Gamera, and while she takes up a lot of space, she is ultimately too short to look right next to the Guardian of the Universe.
Since Gamera is an overall large figure, I find that he looks best alongside other large figures.
This 1956 Rodan, for example, is nicely scaled to Gamera, as is this King Caesar and even Sibozu from Ultraman. There's also this weird little guy that looks like a T-Rex by way of the Tasmanian Devil that kind of works. It's not even a Bandai figure, it's from an old X-Men toy line, but I think it works well enough.
As for finding a Godzilla to pair him with, that's where the tricky part comes in.
The figures that look best alongside this Gamera, in my current collection at least, are this Showa design and the G2K design, which are slightly bigger than average. Meanwhile, this Final Wars Godzilla that I've used in other reviews just looks too small in comparison.
What would be perfect is to have a GMK Godzilla that could stand alongside this guy, since there would be a connection there. A Gamera and a Godzilla both envisioned by Shusuke Kaneko.
I do happen to have one, and I would say the figure is just on the cusp of looking too small, but I think I can work with it in future endeavors. That's a good thing, because I'd love to get pictures of these two together.
So is this Gamera figure worth getting? Well, for the Kaiju fan on the budget, or someone who just wants a good display piece, I would say absolutely.
It has its flaws, sure, but those flaws are ultimately minor compared to the quality you get. If you don't want to break the bank on the SH Monster Arts figures or other Bandai renditions that are out of print, I would indeed say this one is worth adding to the collection while it's still available.
My biggest issue now is figuring out where I'm gonna put him. Wish me luck. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. I can't help but notice that the stamp on his left foot is for Kadokawa, the company that recently bought up the rights to Gamera. Now, the fact that they're using that license to reissue figures like this is great and all, but seriously, how about a new movie?
If you enjoyed what you just saw, hop on down to the description for links to Patreon, DeviantArt, and all of our social media, as well as links for Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, and Emerald of Maddox City, 3 original novels I think you'll really enjoy. Thank you all, and we appreciate your support.